ACTA, the EU's anti-piracy agreement that's got thousands of people on the streets and millions signing petitions of protest. All fear their civil rights are threatened by an agreement designed to protect European intellectual property. After Lisbon and new veto powers on international treaties, the European Parliament has the final say, which it should take in July. Which way is it swinging?
I've concluded that, on balance, I think we should be saying no to ACTA. And I want to make it clear that I'm in favour of protecting intellectual property. I believe we have to protect European innovation and invention, that we have to reward artists and others for their creations, but that has to be weighed against the human rights and the civil liberties aspects of ACTA. And the thing that makes me most nervous is the idea that internet service providers should act as the internet police force.
I support the idea of ACTA agreement, but I can't support the text as such as it lies before us. I am sure that the European Commission and the Member States who negotiated this text actually can make a difference, a change, either in the text or by giving us other ways of creating the legal certainty we need. If they tell me that they are willing to do this and tell me that before the vote in plenary, then of course we shouldn't rush it. Then we have to wait to give them sufficient time to solve the problems so that we can have a legal framework that protects intellectual property rights globally.
But the devil's in the detail, and vague wording, especially over the distinction between private and commercial use of intellectual property, has MEPs worried.
And one of the fears that people have is, what is commercial usage? Is that clearly if I'm sitting at home downloading a film, which I wouldn't do, but a film illegally, I'm not going to be prosecuted for doing that if it's for my own use. But what if I download it and then I share it with you and then I share it with someone else and I pass it on to a colleague? Is that commercial usage or is that still private usage?
There is obligations for the signing parties to actually apply criminal sanctions on people that do infringement of intellectual property right on a commercial scale. People that are doing it as a business more or less. But then the big question I ask myself, what does that mean? What is a commercial scale? Because I don't want, and I don't think anybody who works in this parliament really would like to strike down on individual users.
In view of the mass protests, did the Commission get its public diplomacy wrong on ACTA?
There was an assumption that this was a technical treaty and the public wouldn't be very interested. And when the public got very interested, there was no good media strategy for actually explaining ACTA to the general public, and the fears grew.
The protest around ACTA tells me two things. First of all, that the time of doing negotiations around important legislation for the citizens behind closed doors, that's a thing of the past. That provokes reactions and that actually makes people concerned. Secondly, anything that concerns the internet and copyright, I know that provokes reactions throughout Europe. It provokes reactions among a lot of people that is engaged in the internet debate. But at the same time, we have to remember that this is not only about the internet. It's not even mostly about the internet or copyright. It's mostly about other intellectual property rights. The fact that we have to stop falsified medicines, the problem that 2% of the aviation spare parts are falsified. It's also a question about guaranteeing that we have safe products and that we save jobs in Europe.
If Europe leads, will the others follow?
One thing about ACTA, for example, is that it's been described as a coalition of the willing. The countries that have signed up for ACTA are the countries that have products to protect. Your Chinese, your Indians, your Russians, and many other countries who breach intellectual property at the moment, have not signed up for ACTA. So how it helps us bring those countries into line, I question.
The important thing we do here is that we put out a gold standard on how we want the protection of intellectual property rights to be guaranteed worldwide. I think it's a little bit the same way as the strategy we have around climate change. In the Kyoto Protocol, the big emitters of CO2, China, the US, they are not a part of it and haven't signed up to it. But we still think it's worth the task and worth the effort of actually gathering a coalition of those who take this problem seriously and try to create our strategy and hope to get the others to come along and follow. And we should do the same thing when it comes to piracy.